Kimmy, are your kids currently in school right now?
They are.
Via Zoom or physical?
Zoom.
You're in San Francisco as well, right? Or actually,
South San Francisco.
South San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer your question, yes, we are recording and live.
Thank you. Sorry, Teresa, while we're just waiting for others, I just got a note from Alvin. Looks like his video stopped, and I'm not sure how I can bring him back in. Can you help me with that?
So Alvin, is your video off, Alvin? Maybe he went to the restroom.
Looks like he's muted in case he's talking.
Sorry, I was just typing in the chat box. So my video function allows me to go on and off, but when I try to turn it on, it has a message and it says, unable to start video. You can't start your video because the host has stopped it. Man, thanks. That easy. Oh my goodness, technology. Okay, thanks.
Okay. And
Yes, all right, Alvin. I was trying to help you, but I don't think I quite have that access. So,
Tang, can you?
Try to help me?
Yes, Tang, can you get your video on?
it is a hot day here, you guys. How's everyone staying cool?
Yeah, I hear the kids' voices. Is that, yeah, they must be celebrating.
That would be mine. That would be from my place. Sorry. The kids are celebrating at my place.
Yeah, that's fine. You know, they're supposed to enjoy themselves.
Level annuities from Bright House.
Oh.
I see Phoebe right there.
Phoebe. Oh.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Haven't seen Michael for a long time. Yes.
How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm kind of staying home and just go out, you know, take care of an elderly and try not to go out too much. Yeah.
Understandable.
Okay,
This
so I'm gonna,
coming up.
sorry. So just to respect everybody's time, I'm actually gonna get started. Did anybody have an issue clicking on the link by chance? The link that I sent via email?
No?
No.
I'm not sure why people are messaging me that they can't click the link.
Are they coming through their phones?
No, it's through the laptop, but they say that the link is not working. So I'm not sure.
You can actually enter the meeting ID. Have they tried that? Ted, I think your video is flipped around. Just FYI.
Oh, this allergy is getting to me. Excuse me.
Okay, so I'm gonna get started. Welcome everybody, and thank you for being here on this holiday weekend. I know a lot of people have plans, so I really appreciate you being here and spending an hour with us, or an hour and a half maybe. We have a lot of questions set up today, so hopefully we won't take too much of your time, and hopefully you learn something and we learn from each other as well. Now, to get started, in case you didn't know why you're here or what the workshop is today, it is, hold on, sorry, 1 second. Let me just let some people in the waiting room.
Oh, I'm not seeing that, sorry.
Okay, so today's workshop is about, should school be opened and what changes can we expect? And we're gonna, obviously that's a huge topic, and it's actually very, who muted me?
Sorry, I was trying to mute everyone else.
So
Muted for you, sorry.
that's okay. So we have wonderful speakers today, and we're gonna go a little bit into who they are, why they have the credentials to talk today. And I'm really excited because, you know, this panel, not only because of their vast experience, but they're just fun people. So it's gonna be fun. And I wanted to also introduce my lovely co-host, Kimmy Fong. She's one of the SSK founding board members. Fong, where's Kimmy? I don't see on the thing.
Right here.
Kimmy, say hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate this opportunity for us to speak with all our wonderful speakers. I think it's a really important topic with everything going on right now. So just once again, really grateful for our speakers and glad that everyone can join us. I've been part of the SSK board of directors since last year, and just really excited and happy to be working with wonderful Teresa. We got a lot of great things going on here, so lots more workshops coming up. I'm glad everyone can join us. I'll pass it back to Teresa.
All right. So just to get started, can you, okay, I'm back on mute. So we want to introduce our first speaker, and I'm actually just going to do a brief introduction, and they will expand a little bit. I'm going to ask the speakers to expand a little bit into who you are, because I think the best person that can introduce yourself is yourself, because you know yourself the best. So the first one is Dr. Hong Nguyen. She is the principal from Rancho Romero Elementary School, but I believe she also has experience in middle school, and you've been to different schools before. So Hong, can you expand a little bit into who you are, your experience, your background?
Hi, my name is Hong Nguyen. I actually grew up in Salinas, California. I was born in Michigan. My parents were immigrants from Vietnam, and so they came in the 1980s. I decided to go into education just because I knew that I really loved being around kids and really just enjoyed teaching as well as mentoring young kids when I was in college. And so I ended up going and pursuing my credential as well as my master's, and went beyond that and got my administrative credential and master's, and then went and got my doctorate. I did teach for many years, up to 9 years in elementary school setting. I was an assistant principal at a middle school for a year, and I was a principal in San Jose for 5 years, and then my 6th year, I'm now at Rancho Romero in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District, and just being an administrator for the last number of years, as well as just seeing the growth in education and where, you know, the schools were at, and then moving into the pandemic and remote learning. It is definitely new for everyone. We started that in March, then didn't think that it was going to last this long, and it definitely continued into the fall, right? And so right now we are going back and forth between how can we get the students back in school safely, and what can we do in order to meet all the requirements set by the state as well as by the county. And so those are things that I'm definitely going to discuss a little bit more as we dive right into it. But just know that, you know, our teachers as well as our educators and just our staff members are working so hard during this time, and a lot of new learnings that is happening. And I know that the families at home are doing their very best with the kids that they actually have, and really just trying to do that homeschooling piece, right? And being able to be guided by the instruction that's provided by their teachers. And so this whole remote space is new to all of us. And I just want to really thank all the educators out there for all the work and time that is put in through this process. And hopefully, as we continue to learn from each other, the process gets easier for everyone, parents and families included. And so, you know, I know that there's a lot of resources that are being brought forth, and also those that are coming. And so as we move forward and continue this remote learning that we actually have, and hopefully be able to come back into school, there's definitely going to be a shift in education on how we do things, as well as how we teach our students. And so I'm excited actually to see that next phase, but we'll go more into all of that a little bit later.
Yes, thank you, Hong. And then next we have, dun, 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 Mike Marr. He is a counselor from Balboa High School. And Mike, if I can have you to emphasize a little bit more who you are and your background and all that, and also let me unmute you.
Hi, how you doing? Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me part of this panel today. Expanding what Teresa said, my name is Mike Marr. I'm a school counselor, born and raised in San Francisco, working at Balboa High School, which is located in San Francisco near City College, if you're familiar with the area. Pretty much been working with youth advocates since after college. The way I got into education was working at the Youth Guidance Center, which is it's a youth detention for juveniles who've been incarcerated, and trying to help them get out and get back into society. And I just realized from there that it was a little challenging, and pretty much figured that education would be the prevention for our students. So pretty much like we're all on this board together and just trying to figure out how we can get our students and parents back on board. And so I appreciate all you guys being here, and thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next, we have Alvin. He is, Ashley, I'm looking forward to Alvin's explanation because I have no idea how to put him down. He's a second dean, but he is, according to my husband, also a fresh specialist, or a student specialist, a teacher specialist. Alvin, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
100%. Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's staying cool with an iced beverage. My name is Alvin Akira Eleneo Rosales, and I have the pleasure of working with Mr. Marr, with Mike in San Francisco, the Excelsior District. I've been in education for about, I think this is my 15th year. The way that I arrived at education, I was through community organizing and through community activism. And so directly to the point of potential confusion, my official title is this thing called Fresh Specialist. Now the word fresh, despite being just this cool adjective, it's actually an acronym. Mike knows. The acronym stands for fair, respectful, FRE, excellent, safe, and hopeful. And it is an acronym that attempts to put forth a culture that our school, Balboa High School, is trying to maintain, to create, to expand. And so I'm the fresh specialist in that I take on many roles. For people who are in the educational field, they might understand the jargon tier 1, tier 2 supports. For those of us who are not in the educational field, who don't know that jargon, what it means is sometimes when a young person acts out, you have to respond to it. Well, ways that we can prevent that outside of just responding to it is proactively creating a school culture that makes the young person feel wanted, that makes them feel special, listened to, heard, so that maybe they don't want to act out. And that's, of course, something that all schools are striving for. And those are some of the pieces that I work on: school culture, school climate. Essentially, I am a teacher on special assignment. And I'll stop there and I'll speak more with questions.
While I'm on it, can I just ask one thing, Alvin?
Yes.
Is that position something that all schools have, or is that just Balboa?
I'm going to go with San Francisco Unified School District. There are definitely a variety of positions that are teachers on special assignment. Some teachers on special assignment, short, we call them TSAs. So there's some TSA, also called TOSAs. So some TOSAs work on school culture. Last year, I was a TOSA who worked on instructional pedagogy. Some TOSAs work on ethnic studies. Some TOSAs work on teacher support. So I can't speak as a broad statement to education, but I do know that multiple districts within the state definitely have TOSAs.
Copy that. Thank you. So in case you don't know, we are the people that are hosting this today. So my name is Teresa Huang. I am the founder and the president of Strong, Smart, and Kind Foundation, which is a nonprofit that focuses on mental health, the first Vietnamese nonprofit in Northern California that focuses on mental health. And I'll let my beautiful Kimmy introduce herself. I think she did a little bit earlier, but I'll have her introduce herself.
Hello again. My name is Kimmy Fong, and I am part of the SSK Board of Directors. Very proud of that. We are doing amazing work, and I'm really grateful to be part of this organization. So yeah, with that, I'll turn it back to Teresa.
Awesome. Thank you. So moving forward, oh, hello, Paul. I just want to welcome our next person and my brother. So just a little bit to type in the chat box in case you've never been in one of this workshop before. How did you hear about this workshop? Where are you joining us from? And are you a parent, teacher, student, or something else? But if you can just take a minute right now and just type in the chat box, how did you hear about this workshop? Where are you watching, calling, joining us from? Are you a parent, teacher, student, or someone else? I know one of our audience is, two of our audience are grandparents. So if you can just type that in so that way we know who is part of this community, our live community right now. And I know a lot of our videos goes on rebroadcast, so we'll have a different audience for that. And I also welcome and encourage those audience that are watching the rebroadcast to continue typing in and answer these questions along with us as you watch, because I'll still come back and jump back into the video after it goes live, and I'll still answer and I'll still interact with those questions or comments. And if I can't answer any of the questions, I will stalk my speakers and make sure that I get those answers to you. So let me see, where is our chat box? If you don't know where the chat box is, down in the bottom, by the way.
Just to add on to Teresa, if everyone can just make sure that they're sending it to everyone on the chat.
Yes.
So that we can all see your wonderful messages.
Kimmy, do you see it?
I do.
Go ahead and share.
Let's see, from you, she's a parent of 2 in San Jose's Unified School District. Thank you so much for joining us today. And then let's see, from Paul, parent of 2 elementary kiddos from Orange County. Thank you, Paul. Meryl Jung, from your living room and grandma. Thank you. Let's see, Lu Tai, parent and granduncle. So wonderful to have all these grandparents, uncles, and parents to be joining us today.
Yes. And thank you for coming from different regions of California.
Yes.
I think everyone's just from California. So I do need to put some disclaimers that unless otherwise specified, the speaker's opinions do not represent the school, city, or school district, unless they say so specifically. Everyone here are volunteers. Nobody's getting paid, not that I know of. If you are, please let me know. I want part of that pie. And Teresa and Mike are related. I just have to put it out there just to keep everything transparent. So now the house rule. There is no stupid question. Please ask. If you have questions, comments, you can ask anytime in the chat box, and Cammy's gonna keep she's gonna keep up with the chat box to see where your questions are, and if we can't answer right away, she's gonna take a note of it, and then we'll be able to ask the speakers that you are asking specifically, or ask at the end for questions and answer. So Cammy, you can help me keep track of the chat box, please.
Absolutely.
And then our number 1 rule is be SS kind. That's very important to me. You know, the name of our organization is Strong, Smart, and Kind. And we really emphasize on the word kind, especially during this time. We're all here to learn from each other, so no judgment. Also, some of you guys are really good with social media. So take a screenshot, take a picture, post and tag, and please tag Strong, Smart, and Kind just to get our names out there, our workshop out there. We do provide free workshop on a monthly basis. And like I said, this is all volunteer, but we want to provide the information out there to help the community. So we can only help the community if it reaches the community. So please help us share. Thank you. So now, the first speaker, I'll have Hong speak on a little bit, emphasize on what she spoke about earlier, as well as these three topics that was sent in from audience that wasn't able to join us right now. So we had originally a lot of people sign up prior to remembering that this is a 3 days weekend, and later on they found out they couldn't join us, so they sent in the questions specifically for certain speakers and also questions for general. So you'll see the questions pop up for individual speakers. So I'll have Hong take over.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here. For students that are new as well as returning to school, our process for registration has always been very similar, although a lot of our enrollment has been moved to online, and so families can definitely enroll for their child to go into the school online. Of course, they can't physically be in class, and so they join remotely, right? And so our students, particularly in our San Ramon Valley Unified School District, TK through second grade uses Seesaw as a platform for them to be able to actually go in and get their instruction from the teacher, homework assignments, things that they would do physically. Of course, for our third all the way up until 12th grade, they are using Google Classroom as a platform, and I think a number of districts are using that. Within that, they have a lot of resources that are online that a lot of our schools are using in order to introduce to families and really get them to get more familiar with that. Of course, we all want more paper and pencil for our students as well, and so we do material pickups. We've been doing it every 2 weeks at our site, just so that way the students can actually come through or their families can come through and pick up materials that the teachers actually prepare for the lessons that are upcoming. And so we try to make school as a routine as possible. There definitely is a schedule for our students, and so they have a schedule that's sent out for them for the week by their teachers. And in looking at our schedule for San Ramon, especially for the elementary school, on their Mondays it would be a half day, and then our Tuesday through Friday would be a fuller day. So they're looking at school from like 8 till 2 o'clock. They are not in school the whole time, right? And so it is going to be synchronous as well as asynchronous time. So synchronous is live instruction with the teacher, and asynchronous is when they're able to do work independently and on their own. Within that, of course, there may be other instruction that students are getting from other teachers, whether it's PE or if they are getting art, or if they're getting science. So some of those instructions do come from, other teachers. If they had that within the school system, we have paras or instructional assistants are able to jump into a Zoom call or a Google Meet to really help, as well as inform some of the instruction and do small group instruction. So as we go through our synchronous, it's not whole group all the time. It may be small group instruction as well as one-on-one instruction. And so a lot of that may look different, right? And so as the teachers are becoming more familiar with their schedule and seeing what works for their kids, because every group of students is going to come in with many different factors. And so what is working with the kids as well as the families, and as they're adjusting their schedule, we're seeing that things are getting refined and getting better for them. And so there's that check-in in the morning as well as a checkout at the end of the day, so that way they are really going through the process of building that SEL, which is the social emotional learning piece for students as well, because they're not seeing their peers physically, right? But they're seeing them on screen. And so we still need to teach them a lot of the online behavior etiquettes during this time, right? And, really trying to get them to be in a routine, because we know that routines are important, especially for our young kids. And so whether they're new or returning students, we want them to feel as if they are part of the school regardless. And so that's something that we really make sure that we we take it to heart. Some of the new expectations, a lot of our teachers, they went into this remote space in March. And so there was a lot of learning that actually occurred from that period, and a lot of learning that occurred from that time, right? Things that went well or things that didn't go as well. And so as we moved into the fall, really looking at technology and seeing, do we have all the resources that we actually need in order to teach our students? Do we have, we became very creative of turning iPads into document cameras, so that way we were able to just teach instead of staring at a screen and just talking to the kids. How can we actually manipulate things so that way the kids can actually see what we're talking about? Being able to take the curriculum that we actually have, whether it's, reading, writing, moving into other areas, and really getting the students to get familiar with the routines of the classroom and still teach that curriculum, because that is important. And so our teachers we still hold them high expectations, and really making sure that the students are learning the curriculum as well as the standards that are needed, so that way they're not falling behind, and still doing the assessment piece. We spent the first few weeks having the kids actually do one-on-one assessments or group assessments with teachers as well, so that way we're able to sort of see where the students are at, and moving forward, really looking at interventions that we need to put in place for our kids. Even if it's through remote, we still need to make sure that we're doing these things for our students, so that way we're meeting their needs, right, wherever they are. And as we move into the school year, really holding teachers as well as students accountable, as well as responsible for the things that they need to learn and need to do. And I know that our teachers are working super hard, as well as our staff working super hard in providing a lot of new learnings as well as new teaching for our students. And so we want to make sure that we're able to build on that and really encourage them. And this time is not easy, right? And so if you talk to a number of our teachers, they feel like they're spending a lot more time in front of the screen trying to do all this research and all this learning, especially for those that have not been as comfortable in front of a computer, right? And so, I give them a lot of kudos for that, because this is a new space for everyone. And really looking at elementary school and going back, we talk a lot about the waivers and being able to apply for schools to come back, especially the elementary schools to come back. And even with that, our state of California just came out with a new definition for a cohort. And so we had talked about a hybrid model in our district and going back on an A-B hybrid schedule. But even looking at the actual definition of a cohort, having 14 students for every 2 adults, that our hybrid model might not fit that criteria. And so we really have to go back and really look at, are we going to be able to do the social distancing? Are we going to be able to make it safe? Do we have the funds able to have the adults needed for the number of students that is required, right? And if they have to go out and hire even more teachers, would our district have those funds in place? And so there's a lot of different things that we can't control right now. We're hoping, and I see a lot of changes in just the waiver process and things that are put into place. And so as we move closer to the fall and the next few months, it may change again. And so we do hope that we have our kids back in school, right? Because they're able to build on that social emotional piece physically, as well as learn a lot of different things when they're in person versus on screen. But we know that we have to make sure all the safety protocols are in place, or else that can't happen. And so we're hopeful, but we're excited that as things move into the next few months, we're going to be learning a lot. And if we were to come back in person, I know that a lot of what has been learned as well as taught will transfer over into our next phase of education. So that's something that I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Hong. Kimmy, do we have any questions or comments in the chat box?
We do. Thank you so much, Dr. Nguyen. First question comes from Tung, and he wants to know what happens to students who don't have access to the internet. How do they participate? And it's a really good question, because actually a couple days ago I saw on social media that there was a post about a couple of kids sitting outside of Taco Bell to get
Yeah.
that homework done, and my heart just broke. I mean, it's just
So every
really-
district should have some type of protocol in place for us to be able to have students, if they don't have devices, that they need to pick them up. We actually did a huge distribution of devices here in our district, and also giving out hotspots for families
Mhm.
that don't have internet. And so I definitely encourage families that don't have access to be able to get that access, because it is there. It's not, you don't have to pay for it, right? You just need to make sure that you go through that district and they're able to provide that technology piece. And if that's not working, you want to just keep on asking. We've had students return devices because it doesn't work for them to get a new one. And so, there are protocols in place. So definitely with families that, if it's not quite working for them, they want to make sure that they're able to work with the district to get what they need.
That's so great. And actually, Paul mentioned that as well for the Orange County District. Sorry, I kind of lost this. He's saying the CARE Act, they're funding to provide free computer and hotspots to families as well. So great job on those districts. And for my district in South San Francisco as well, they're providing Chromebooks and hotspot for kids who don't have access. So really grateful for that. And then actually next question comes from Paul. And he's asking about the challenges for students and families with disabilities, and that's really important. He wants to know, how is your school district tackling the challenges for students with disabilities?
So we have a lot of students that may be on IEPs, as well as, may have a 504 or going through the process of a student study team. And so for our particular district, all of those documents are legal. And so we have to make sure that we're meeting them by having meetings with families still, just to make sure that we're meeting the needs. Testing is something that we're actually starting after Labor Day. If the families feel comfortable enough, we definitely have to do testing for families that had requested it, but somehow in the spring we weren't able to get to, and so that we're able to do that now in the fall. Of course, we have to also be flexible with families that are not comfortable leaving the house or having their kids come to school to do testing, right? And so having other protocols in place, but we are still meeting the needs in terms of providing services for our students, whether it's OT services, speech services, RSP services, or any other services, and we're doing that remotely with our families and connecting with them to make sure that we're able to meet with them, whether it's in a small group setting or one-on-one. So the services still have to happen.
Okay, great. We're getting a lot of great questions coming in here. So the next one comes from Marlene Tran, and she wants to know, how can non-English parents help their children at home? And then also, how do teachers help their students progress?
So with our non-English families, depending on the population of certain areas, they do have different translations that come into play. And so depending on, I was working in San Jose for the last 15 years. And when I was there, I know that a lot of our translations came in Vietnamese as well as in Spanish, because that was very populated. At the school site themselves, within the district, if families have like other means or other languages that they have, then there are supports out there at the district level where they can actually get support. And just working with our kids at home, of course, our teachers are great at differentiating as well as trying to monitor our students' progress. And so knowing that, there's specific students out there that are speaking multiple languages or are lacking, our EL students, or those that are still at a level where they haven't been reclassified. We actually have them in the system in making sure that, we're still meeting the needs of those particular students. And our teachers are, in terms of progress monitoring, of course, besides looking at some of the assignments that are getting turned in through their different platforms that they actually have, as the students are coming in remotely, they're still monitoring their progress in that way, and also through the different assessments that they give. And the assessments are not given one time, so it's given throughout a series of the year. And so they'll be able to monitor the students' progress through some of the things that are assigned to them, but then also the assessments that are given from the district. So let's say in San Ramon, we use FastBridge as our online assessments, but we also have through our reading Lexia, where we give certain assessments there. And then we also have it for math. And so we use different modes of assessments in looking at our students. We have running records that we actually do as well. And so as we continue the school year, we'll continue to go back and look at at how they progressed in their progress.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hong. I see a couple more questions, and these are all really great questions that are coming in. We're going to move forward to the next speaker, but Cam, if you can just take a note of all these questions so that we make sure we answer all these questions. And maybe the next speaker can answer that next question as well, because I think, yeah, I think that, or maybe both of them can answer the question, the next one. So going on to our next speaker, I believe it should be the fresh specialist. So, Alvin, I don't see you.
I'm here
I actually see him.
behind the curtain.
There you go.
it
Okay,
is.
there you go.
All right. Hello again, everyone. So I'm going to stick to these purple questions on the screen in front of me. The first question is, how's school going to be like for new and returning students at your school? So I'm going to give you a breakdown of what our schedule looks like. And hopefully this might be something interesting to your interest in attending this workshop. So imagine you're anywhere from a 14 to an 18 or 19-year-old, and you basically wake up and you go to your first class. It's 9 a.m. So you hop into a Zoom call, and the classes are 80 minutes long. So according to our district's MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding. And what that represents is the agreement that happened between the union, kind of advocating for teachers and what should be done in the context of teachers, and the district. So the MOU allows teachers to have asynchronous and synchronous learning. What asynchronous learning means is you're a young person and you can independently work on some of the assignments being given. Synchronous learning means I am a teacher right now, everyone else in this Zoom meeting, I'm going to direct instruction to you synchronously. You're all learning together as I teach live in whatever format that takes. And so there's about 40 minutes, 50 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes of synchronous learning. I'm directly instructing. And then I might give you some tasks that you work on independently. And so that's for a chunk of 80 minutes. And you have 3 of those classes throughout the day. And that's typically what a school day looks like for a high school student at our particular school. In regards to if you're a new student, well, you're either a transfer student or you're a 9th grade student. And for me, the biggest thing that I'll use as a transition point into the second question, how does my position connect to all of this is, well, you just graduated from 8th grade. You're fresh into high school. You're in your home. You're by yourself physically. Of course, you're with your family. Maybe you're in a home with multiple families. How do you feel a sense of belonging to this new high school that you're going to? In theory, everyone has one experience going to high school. We all have different high school experiences. We all have different pulls towards high school, identities with high school. But as a young person, how can my position help a young person feel like they're a part of something bigger? How can they feel like they belong to a community in which socialization is happening? And this is the tricky thing. Dr. mentioned it earlier. This is new to everyone. And so as someone who's also new to distance remote learning, I'm questioning how we can create activities, create an environment where young people want to sign on, where young people want to click on a link, where they want to watch a video of one of their teachers doing something silly. How can they feel like that they have friends in their classes? And I'm going to repeat that question, but I'm going to say, how can young people feel like they have friends in their classes when all of the video screens are turned off? How can young people feel like they have friends, how they're socializing in their classes when the chat box in which we're all typing our questions, when the teachers made the decision to actually close that chat box? So there's no social interaction for whatever degree of social interaction can occur through typing in a chat box. What if that's no longer available to you? And so right now, from the top down, and I wouldn't know about other school districts, but from my understanding, which could be wrong, there's no necessarily top-down mandate of video cameras have to be on. They're going to be connected to grading. Chat boxes have to be open so you can allow young people to interact with each other and like type to each other. So without that mandate, teachers are left to figure out what is working for them, what is comfortable for them. And with that there's byproducts in regards to how a young person is now engaging their class. And so that's one of the big questions. One of the things that we're doing in response is we're gonna have a club fair. So imagine any high school, it's got clubs, right? You meet during lunch, you meet after school, you meet before school. Well, how the heck are we gonna do that during remote learning? How the heck are we gonna do that during distance learning? And so right now we're kind of wrestling through that. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I'm tackling. Just to briefly go over the last question, what are my thoughts on parents supporting their young people during virtual learning, during distance learning? I think my answer to that is, I don't know how parents can do it, particularly parents who are teachers, who are asked to be on their computers. I see some head nods. They're being asked to be on their computers from 9 to 2 while they have a child. Maybe they have 2 children and they're juggling the fact that their children are on a laptop. And let's exponentially complicate things, particularly if you're a parent in a household where there's like an extended family. Maybe there's 2 nuclear families. Maybe there's 3 nuclear families. I have the utmost respect and awe for people who are in that situation, who are able to balance those things. And I don't know how they do it, but I know that it's being done. And I'll stop there.
Awesome, because we have a long list of questions for you. So Kimmy, go.
Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Alvin. So let's see. First question from Marlene. How much time do parents need to help monitor their kids so that they are actually on task?
Let's see. How can I answer that? I think it's a difficult question to answer, but I can say that depending on the age of the children, that depending on, I'll use the word rigor for now, the rigor of what types of assignments are being given, what the context of those assignments are, and of course, what is the character and personality and energy level of a particular child in regards to, I know that I was the young person bouncing off walls. So if I'm physically in a classroom, like I'm literally standing out of my seat, walking around the room all the time, all throughout my childhood. So now if I am that young person, I'm being asked to like focus here on this computer screen for like an hour straight. Well, I know I can do it because video games, right? TV, movies, but simultaneously, if my teacher is not being engaging, I'm kind of like, I'm just gonna keep my screen closed. You don't even know what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm doing the homework. Yeah, sure. And then I'm over here like playing video games. And so in terms of the direct question of how much time, I don't know, that's a difficult thing for me to say. I don't think there's an answer that I could give.
Great, thank you for that. Next question comes from Tom, and I guess it goes both for you or Dr. Nguyen, excuse me. Has attendance been affected during this pandemic?
I'll answer real quick. You would have to define attendance before I can answer that question. Because at least in San Francisco Unified School District, we are defining attendance as any sort of engagement or interaction with a staff member. So Google Classroom, let's say you sign on to Google Classroom, you turn in an assignment, I'm gonna mark you present for that day. Let's say I'm having tech issues. I'm gonna write the teacher an email and be like, hey, my computer is not working. You're gonna be marked present for that day. And so depending on how you would define attendance, I would answer it differently. I'll pass to the doctor.
I would say it's also varies depending on the area that you are, your school is located also. And so depending on, you know, we've had schools where it's super impacted and the students are attending as much as they can online. Our attendance varies from 8 o'clock all the way until 2 o'clock if it happens to be on a full day. And we do expect that our kids are online majority of that time if it happens to be synchronous. So I do like an attendance check with our teachers to say, hey, you know, do you have students that happen to have logged on in the morning, but somehow stopped, you know? And so then we would follow up with those families. We do have families that are fortunate enough where they're able to homeschool their kids or have tutors or, you know, hire teachers outside. And so if they're fortunate to be able to do that, then they would unenroll their students if they're not able to follow through our expectations of being there, through our schedule. And so we do have a variety of different attendance throughout the district, right? And so there may be a low enrollment now, and then I have a lot of families that are saying, I will come back as soon as you are in person, right? And so then our attendance may be more impacted in terms of the numbers of physical students that we actually have. I just received a call recently where a family said, we have another opportunity to be able to learn through our remote and then also live instruction in another country, right? And so they're given those type of opportunities, and at this time, why not take that, right? And so there's a lot of different things that families are going through themselves, and some are saying that the schedule doesn't quite work for them because they're working families. And so if the students are on and they're on, and they're trying to monitor, it works for some families and it doesn't work for others, right? Others do love that whole process. They love that their kids are online all day long, and so we really have to just sort of, gauge it by, our families and seeing how successful that is, right? We're at the beginning of this new school year, and we hope that as the weeks move on, that students are getting really comfortable with the schedule and they know what the expectations are. And so we'll see more stability in that way, right? And then I think as families talk to each other and they're seeing that, hey, in the public school system, this is being done, it's working great, and maybe our enrollment will increase because of that, right? And so it just really depends, especially I think in the areas that your schools are at, and we talk about equity quite a bit, right? And where's the equity within the district, right? So we have those that may have a lot more resources in some areas and other areas that don't have as much resources, right? And so we really also have to look at that piece as well. So.
And Hong, while you're, sorry to interrupt, but there's a question specifically for elementary schools. I want to approach it for Hong while we're at it. What are your thoughts on elementary kids going to school for the first time, going through virtual, especially if they don't know how to read yet, and they're expected to be there, let's say 8 to 2 or whatever the hours are? What are your thoughts on that?
Luckily, our younger kids, our TK as well as kindergarten, don't have to go all day. They're really on a half-day schedule, and so the teachers meet with our group of students all together. So if the class has 20, 25 kids, then they'll meet with them all together for about 15 minutes, 30 minutes or so. And then they really break them down into smaller groups. So they're not really seeing the whole class the whole time. And then they have specific time frames where they're signing back in to meet with the teachers in smaller groups, and then maybe a whole group at the very end of the day. But their day really is from 8 to maybe 11:30. And so it just really depends. And throughout that whole time, they're not online the whole time, right? And so it's just when they're synchronous with the teacher. But they may have some assignments on Seesaw that they're doing. And they also may have some hands-on assignments, because with our younger kids, our teachers are really preparing materials for them. So if they're doing an upcoming lesson, I just saw one on, cutting an apple up and cutting out the pieces and labeling an apple, right? And so they were able to, the teacher provided those materials for the students. And so they were able to follow the teacher in and gluing the parts and labeling pieces of parts of the apple together. And so I thought that was pretty neat for the teacher to be able to even prepare that and then have that be done, right? And so it just really depends. But with our younger guys, they're not in school longer than the older. So I think that at least for them, they have what they need within that time frame.
Awesome, thank you. And I see probably about 3 more questions for Alvin, but Kimmy, if you can take a note of that, because I want to respect everybody's time and move on to our next, but definitely not least speaker, Mike Mar, and your questions. And then any questions that we didn't answer, we're gonna answer them all together after this. Mike, you're on.
All right, thank you. One of the questions, it says, how will the school staff deal with the new changes, and how will they counsel the students? Well, for the most part, it's been challenging doing this remote distance, especially as an academic counselor. I like human interaction. And so what's challenging talking to some of the students is what Alvin mentioned is they have a blank screen. And so there's a lot of nonverbal cues that I cannot see. And so sometimes I feel like I'm just talking to myself. So that's been a challenge. I think for the most part, I haven't been able to hop in classrooms for the high school, but I am also a parent who has children or a child on Zoom classes. And so definitely I see how the check-ins, I can hear my son's teacher checking in on him. Hey, how are you doing? Please keep your head up. Hey, can you please put the toy down? Can you please refocus? And so kind of going back to a question was asked for Alvin, how can parents help monitor their children? Well, my child's a second grader, so he's able to finally understand how to type and sign in. One thing I noticed, and a friend of mine, she's an elementary teacher in the city as well, she says the Chromebook has actually been really helpful because in the San Francisco district, it's a one-touch stop. When we had our Mac or iPad, fortunately we had a Mac and iPad, you had to log in multiple times for Seesaw and Clever. So I'm not sure, I can't speak for all districts, but for sure in San Francisco, everything, once you sign in, they have a, I believe it's called QVC code. I'm a little older, so I don't know what it's called, but the code to log in, you show the screen and it will log in. If you don't have that, then you type in your Gmail or Google account, and when it pops up to the screen, it has Clever, Gmail, everything on top, and it's a lot easier. Zoom it's a lot easier to connect for the students. So going back to the question of how can a parent help? Well, I have a lot of parents in the past who do not speak English. Unfortunately, being a third generation Chinese born American, I don't speak any English. I probably speak more Spanish than Chinese. I'm sorry, I don't speak any Chinese. So I probably speak more Spanish than Chinese. So definitely using, when I spoke to parents in the past, I was like, depending on the level, for high school students, I was like, look, have a high school student, your student, explain it to the parent. Please read this out loud to me, okay? That's how we can monitor their activities. Blank is blank. Let me say that, repeat that one more time. A blank assignment is a blank assignment. And I believe in any language, if you see a blank, you know the assignment's incomplete. And that's how maybe some parents can question, like, hey, why is this a 0 out of 10? How can I help you go with this, okay? I know it might be a little challenging for the younger students, for the elementary students, and definitely there's a lot of resources within the school who you have to contact your school and see if they can provide a translator in the particular language. So I'm gonna pause with that. Some schools are opening to back to physical, you know, what's my thoughts on that? It really depends on your county. You know, I'm not up to date for the whole United States. I'm not up to date in California on the spikes of COVID. So my thoughts are, in my opinion, I mean, like, I think it should be, as long as it's safe for everybody. The main thing is health is wealth. And so, yes, I mean, if we had the resource, but working in a public school prior to COVID, we didn't really have that much resource in the beginning for sanitation. So coming up with more money for sanitation, I don't know. However, I would say the best thing that came out of this is both my children learned from school how to wash their hands and, you know, like almost like a doctor for like 30 seconds. And so I would say that's a good advantage of what has happened in the past. And I would say even this with, since we're all distance learning, everybody has technology now. Everybody should have access to a Chromebook. So depending on the budget of the school district, we still were able to figure out technology for every student, which was not readily available in the past. So thoughts going back to school, I love it. I personally would love it because I can see and talk to my students again. And I heard one of the questions for Alvin earlier was, how do we connect students who are not connected? Well, sorry to say, before COVID, we were having the same struggles with the same students who were not connecting physically. So that's one of the things, having the adults here, trying to build that relationship and try to build that foundation to draw the students into the schools. So distance learning, no distance learning, it's been the same struggle. So what are your thoughts on parents now also expected to be present on monitors? Okay, kind of mentioned that earlier. I get it, you know, like it is tough. Like I sit with my son, we sit about 4 or 5 hours a day. And it's challenging because when I'm in Zoom meetings, IEP meetings, 504 meetings, staff meetings, he always has questions at those times. So that's been a challenge. But I would say stay calm, you know, try to be patient as you can. You know, no one has a doctorate in COVID. No one, this is new. And even if this happened 100 years ago, I don't think anybody written down how to do distance learning because we didn't have technology back then. So, I mean, to the parents out there, I get it. You got to work. Just do the best you can. Do the best you can. You know, like we're all in this together. Yeah, you know, we want them to be 100% attendance, but man, do the best we can. You know, I think the best thing is just to reflect on the time and appreciate how much time we got to spend together. I never spent so much time with my family ever. So just be present and be there for one another.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, this year has definitely been all about adaptation and new things. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise for some as well. So let's check in with our chat box. Kimmy, I'll turn it over to you for questions from Mike, because I see some already.
Thank you. This question came in from Arlene a bit earlier while Alvin was speaking, but I think it pertains to all the speakers. If you guys can chime in. She was saying that not all parents can work at home, and she was asking if some employers give special consideration to employees to take care of the kids and their education. That may be a question more towards employers, but then for all the educators here, speakers here, I'm just wondering that myself. I mean, not all of us are fortunate enough to be able to do that, right? So how are you guys able to support families who aren't able to do that? And especially for, younger kids or kids who are just learning English. I mean, it's a lot, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Mike, go ahead, since you're on.
That's good. That's a tough question. For our high school students, hopefully they have enough soft skills to be able to go online or at least find the Google Classroom or site with the recording later on when they can go online. The challenging part is, and I already told this to several parents and several students, unfortunately, no matter what age group you are, from elementary to high school, welcome to adulting. You're gonna have to grow up really fast, and I'm sorry. You have to check your emails just as much as you check your Instagram, your TikTok, and your text. This is an adult text, TikTok. You have to check that, and there's no substitute for that. And that's just an unfortunate piece. I am empathetic and sympathetic for those parents who have to work, and I get it. I know for our school, and I can speak only for our school, we were the child care. We were the home from 8 to 6 p.m. We were the breakfast, lunch, dinner, tutor, social worker, therapist. Our school, we lacked the source of therapists, so I would have to at one point of the year, I was a social worker, therapist / everything. And so it's challenging. I get it. For the other, I would like to let everybody else, I'm not sure how I can speak on for the elementary.
Yeah, for our elementary, we definitely are expecting our families to log in online. Our district actually offers independent studies for families that can't really have the students be there in that synchronous time. And so some of our families do opt into that, we call it Venture, our independent studies program, where the students are able to have a series of work that they're supposed to be completing and then meet the teacher once a week, right, for an hour. And so there are other avenues for families to take if the schedule that we actually have during our remote learning doesn't quite work for them. Some of our families may be opting to do type of homeschool for them and then waiting for us to be able to come back in person. Other options that we have is that if we do go back to some type of hybrid model, then our district is still allowing some families to do that full remote, right? Because we have families out there that are not comfortable leaving the house or not comfortable to come back to school or sending their kids back to school. So we want to make sure that we're still providing that outlet for families as well. And so giving many different options for families so that way they can find the ones that fit for them. We do offer, I don't know about employers, different employers and what they're offering for them, but within our district, we're offering our teachers some discounts if they wanted to put their child in some type of after school or daycare system that is here that's connected to our district. And then our teachers are given options to work from home or coming into the classroom and bringing their child if they need to. And so there's different ways that we're trying to work around it so that way we're able to give that flexibility for some of our employees here.
That's so wonderful. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Teresa.
No, I'm saying that's an amazing, just to have that option and that flexibility, because I know trying to work from home while your kid is right next to you, it's challenging. So it's awesome that your school does that. Go ahead, Kimmy.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I totally agree with that. That's just really wonderful. You know, what you guys are doing, especially for educators, right? I mean, it's really hard for them to be in class all day teaching their students and then also having to take care and worry about their own child, or children. So that's great. Actually, our next question comes from Lou Tai, excuse me, and to chime in on the questions we had earlier. He's asking, can we encourage families to take turns to do co-op sessions? And then also students to attend in their own, in their known group so they can be safe from COVID.
Alvin, you want to take this one?
I can give it a shot. I appreciate the question. Can we encourage families to take turns doing co-op sessions? So I am assuming that by co-op sessions, we mean like small groups of young people kind of learning within those groups. Would you say that that is correct?
He's nodding. Lewis
Oh,
nodding.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm fully supportive of that. I think that is a great way of learning in general. I've taught at private schools, I've taught at public schools, I've taught at charter schools, I've taught in elementary, middle school, and high school. And I think the small school model, taken even more magnified and taken to a small co-op session, if we want to call it that, I think that's an incredible idea. Now, the complication comes in regards to the funding that typically is needed to do that. And so if we're going to explore that co-op model, which I absolutely agree with is a valuable model, well, to oversimplify, you need money for that. And so unless you are coming from the type of background where you have the financial flexibility to put forth towards that, I feel like maybe we're encouraging the gap between those with money and those without money to get wider and wider and wider. And so despite the fact that I agree we should encourage folks, my creative question to the systems outside of just the school system is, how can we compensate for that equity gap? How can we make sure that everyone is being served in a way that is unique to their situation? And that's where it gets complicated.
Awesome. And just before we continue, I just want to acknowledge and greet our two people that came in late. Well, sorry, I'm greeting you late. You came in earlier. So hi to Inti and hi to An. And I know a couple of people are calling in. So I'm not sure if you can actually text in the chat box if you're calling from the phone. So if you can't, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the questions. We are all in this as a community to learn from each other. So if you can't type in the chat box, please feel free to unmute yourself and you can talk. Go ahead, Kimmy.
Thanks, Teresa. And again, a lot of great question comments here. This next one comes from Marlene. Oops, I just moved. And sorry, I lost my place. Give me 1 second. And she mentions that, sorry, what's that?
No, so yeah, we have lots of questions. I'm trying to go through it myself.
Yeah, it keeps like jumping around as new questions come in. So again, from Marlene Tran, and she states that although my tenants moved out 3 years ago, I have been returning their SFUSD mails, report cards, and even large bags that could contain devices. They're concerned that our district has not monitored these because such expensive devices that are left for families that moved out can cost a district a lot. Hope all district check on current family addresses before mailing these equipments. Does anyone have any comments on that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess every district's a little different in how they do things. We actually ask our families to come pick it up from the school site. And so, you know, we'll leave it there until we can get in contact with them, and then they go swing by the school to pick it up. And so that's, we don't really mail those expensive devices out, but districts are different and how they're handling it.
Yeah, for our district as well, we have to actually pick up if we do need it. So I'm kind of surprised that some districts are mailing that out because definitely they're, you know, expensive, and we need families to be accountable for that, right? Let's see. Lots of questions here.
Oh, sorry. Marlene, you are on mute. So if you want to talk, you have to unmute yourself, my dear. You have to press unmute. I see you're talking.
Sorry.
There you go.
I said that my friend who's a mail carrier recognized, you know, these bulky packages, they couldn't be simple things. So instead of leaving there, she made the point of returning to the school district, and she said that it has happened a lot in San Francisco. I'm not saying about other districts. So when you talk about the technology for families, I'm really concerned. As I said, I even wrote to one of the district commissioners to alert him that this has been happening, but somehow these letters are still coming. And as I said, they could be report card. I don't open anything, but I keep on returning them. So I'm just saying this is what's happening in San Francisco. And I'm so glad that Dr. Nguyen said that it doesn't happen in her district and everything is picked up. That is the best way. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we go ahead with the next question? And I know we had a couple questions while Alvin was talking earlier too. I just want to make sure everybody's questions get answered.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm trying to jump back and forth. And let's see, this is actually from Paul. I know he signed off a little bit earlier, some conflict, but let me pull that back up. Give me 1 second, please.
So while you're looking for that, there's a question here that I am interested in hearing about. So maybe all the speakers can talk on how. So this question is from Tang, and the question is, how are students being graded? So I'll let Alvin go first.
Sure, I can say that right now we're trying to figure it out. And what I mean by figuring out is, once upon a time, pre-COVID-19, there was a system that was called A through F. And that is how people are graded. Even within the system of A through F, different teachers using the same system subjectively did it differently. And so there was always an inconsistency amongst the A through F. Now, when COVID first happened at the end of last year, San Francisco Unified, we rounded up and said all students were either going to pass or fail, because we acknowledged that obviously the entire world is going through a pandemic. And so we didn't want to be too harsh. We wanted to center humanity and acknowledge that people are going through really difficult things. Now that we are out of that last year and now we're starting a new year, well, we're back to the A through F system. But the reality is, we're not back to normal. There's still people who are suffering from evictions, despite the eviction moratorium in California being extended. We're still having people who are getting sick. We're still having deaths happen. We're still having people who are on unemployment. We're still having people lose their jobs. There's young people who are now serving as babysitters, and they need to get part-time jobs to support, because even though you're not going to get evicted from your home, you're still responsible for paying all the money that you owe at the end of this eviction moratorium. So my point is, we have this system A through F, and I suppose I could answer your question. That's how we're grading. But when I say we're figuring out how to be equitable and to acknowledge the fact that we are still in a pandemic. And so we're trying to be mindful of that. And I will put a period right there.
And Hong, how is that for elementary school?
I definitely agree with Alvin too, in that, we did return back to our report cards in San Ramon Valley for our elementary school. It's on a number system, so they get like checks and then 1, 2, 3s. And so we are returning to that in terms of grading. Our assignments that the students are getting on Seesaw as well as Google Classroom is what we're expecting. I did notice that during our last materials pickup that we actually had students who were dropping off, or their families were dropping off work that they physically did. So that way our teachers collected them to correct too. So we also have that I think our teachers are also trying to figure out, like, what is it that I'm going to hold the kids responsible for and accountable for in submitting to the school versus, what they are doing online. But they are being held accountable for the work that's assigned.
Awesome. And there is a follow-up question for that, or I have a follow-up question for that. And Mike, maybe you can answer this for me. Since we're living in this virtual pandemic studies, what are your thoughts on parents should they still be concerned about the kids' grades? And moving forward, usually at the end of the learner report cards and stuff like that, how do teachers do report cards nowadays? And how should parents react to that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to the first question, I think for the most part, and I mentioned it earlier, is just trying to do your best for what resources we have. It's challenging. I mean, like, even if you have everything, the internet could be spotty. Sometimes it's just new habits of turning assignments in. I mean, I just remember for my son, first 2 weeks, we realized he didn't turn anything in Google Docs because we weren't hitting finish. So it could just be simple as just getting used to the system. I can't tell how other parents are going to react to academics, because we are multi-generation and I can't tell how other people to parent. However, this is something very different that none of us gone through since our great-grandparents' generation in 1920.
Yeah.
And so this is something I feel like my son is going to tell his kids, hey, back in my day, my parents still made me go through school in COVID. So try the best we can. I mean, I know the UCs and states, they dropped SATs. I mean, I honestly, right now, I think do the best you can, stay on a routine. And if you get a B or a C or a D, you're passing. That's not the most important thing right now. I think the most important thing right now is getting through this, right? And I could be wrong. And this is just, like I said, it's my personal opinion, but I think health is wealth. I know a lot of Asian families don't like to talk about feelings and struggles, but this is time to try to change and adapt. If you have children or if yourself not feeling well, there are resources in the school that could be the first place to connect with. I put out a resource page later. This is not exactly just for San Francisco. It's a nationwide. You can start there in your county, but definitely reaching out. Even if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone in school about your feelings, reach out to a friend. Reach out to your siblings, reach out to a family member, let them know, I'm not feeling good, and this is why, right? And that's all we can do right now. I think right now, we'll figure out school. We'll do an extra makeup if we have to somehow, but it's not the most serious thing. I think the most serious things right now is just keep it together and keep on going for one another.
Amen, brother. Amen. I agree. And I know that can be hard because, you know, it's especially for Asian family or my traditional family, growing up is not an A, it doesn't cut it. You got to have an A+. So saying that, you know, having not having grades being a priority it's hard to swallow, but I agree. And Alvin, this question was actually for you earlier. So we'll go through this and then I wanted to continue with the workshop and then we'll come back to the rest of the questions that's not getting answered. So Alvin, has any parents expressed concern about the videos into their homes because some students live in SROs and etc.? Talking about culture.
I did see that question. So from my subjective experience, I have not yet heard a parent complain about that. And I would assume that I will not hear any parents complain about that because there's no mandate. And so again, I'm a teacher. I have a classroom full of, let's say, 30 young people. There might be like 28 cameras off. And I don't have the ability to say, if you don't turn your camera on, you're gonna get an F for the day, because it's kind of inequitable. We don't know what's behind the screen. We don't know why a young person is not wanting to turn their camera on. I was talking to a teacher the other day, similar to, let's say I'm a teacher, I walk through the building, 3 young people are like, hey, Mr. Rosales, what's up? They give me a little hug, they give me a dap. That's a relationship piece that I've earned. I have their trust. However, I earned it through listening, through non-judgmental, whatever. We're starting this brand new. It's only the 3rd week of school for SFUSD. In my head, a young person is figuring out, like, you know, they got their camera off and maybe you talk to them and after a while, you know, they're like peeking through. Maybe they'll show their camera for like 5 minutes, turn it back off. I'm hoping that in a month or 2 with the type of teacher who could resonate and build rapport with young people quickly back prior to COVID, I hope cameras start turning on during this. And for the teachers who, well, it's not as easy for them to do that, I think it's gonna remain a difficult thing because sometimes young people wanna hide behind that, whether it's from social anxiety, whether it's from their situation behind the screen that they don't wanna display, or whether it's through something that we don't know. I think teachers really need to be mindful of not taking that personal. It's not about them. But yeah, I have not heard of a parent complain about that. I have heard about a parent complain about that the students don't have their cameras on. My incoming 9th grade student doesn't feel like they're building with anyone. They're looking around at blank screens, and I resonate with that. I feel for that, and we're figuring that out.
Awesome. So moving forward, this question is for all of you. So Alvin, you want to be the first one?
Sure. What are your thoughts on parents wanting to take this school year off or waiting until we have a vaccine before allowing their kids to go back to school? All right. My thoughts are, when we say take a school year off, I imagine that's like a sabbatical year. So I wonder if that means that their young person is going to repeat that year the next year. Like, let's say I'm a young person, I'm in 8th grade. Am I gonna not graduate this year because my parents took a year off and I'm gonna graduate next year? I think that's a question that I have. But at the end of the day, or waiting until we have a vaccine, dang, I don't know when these vaccines are gonna come out. I really don't know. You might be waiting longer than a year. Oh my God. I mean, at the end of the day, I empower the parent to make that decision, but I also want to acknowledge that I think all of the systems in this government, whether it's at the very, very top or anywhere below that, all of the systems are figuring this out. They're making it up on the fly, and we need to keep that in mind. And so we cannot be too hard or difficult on ourselves or on other people. And we have to acknowledge that as human beings, we have to center our humanity, and as opposed to pretending like the systems are normal. pretending like we're back to normalcy. We're not back to normalcy, and that will not be until we are, if that makes sense.
That's a great, great comment. And for the person that asked this question, since this person couldn't be here today, I would have the same question too. Like, are you trying to repeat that same school year? So I wasn't really sure what that meant. Hong, you want to take a stab at this question?
I think for me, when it comes down to it, it's going to be the parent's decision, right? We can't really control or really say anything to that effect, except for encouraging them to, continue school in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's going to be some type of homeschool, whether it is some type of remote, for us, we know that education is important. We want the students to be able to meet the standards and not fall behind, right? And so when it comes to families making decisions to send their kids to school physically or not, that's going to be really on them, because it also has to be on how comfortable they are. They're not looking at just themselves. They may be looking at other family members that live with them, or things that are going around them. And there may be families that are not comfortable sending their kids to school in the next few years, right? And so hopefully they're looking at other options that are going to work for them a lot more. Of course, we want to see kids that are going to be able to interact with each other physically, right? But we know that that's not going to be the same for everyone. And so I really, when it comes down to this, it's going to be the parent's decision, and hopefully whatever the parents decide in making this decision, whether or not the kids are going to be in school physically or not, they're not being left behind in terms of meeting the curriculum or the standards. Hopefully there's some other means of them being able to at least catch up, or at least getting what they need through some other avenue.
Yes, definitely. And then before we're moving forward, Mike, this question was for you from Marlene earlier. Not all parents can work at home. Do some employers give special consideration to employees to take care of their kids and their education?
I can't answer that. I don't know what the programs are for other employers. So I don't know. I can't speak on that part. Hopefully. I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's fair. I'd rather have an I don't know than a make-up answer. Okay, so while you're on it, you want to approach the next questions?
Yeah, so what are my thoughts on the social connection aspect for the students? I think this kind of answers the last question as well. For the most part, if they can, I think at least having a routine going to school, at least having some face time with your classmates, at least establish some connection and bond. I know, at least for my son's school, the teacher allows the first 5 minutes for kids to connect with one another and talk in breakout rooms. As social connection, this is where also, I would say, like social distance, where once maybe school is done, and if it's affordable with the family, maybe after dinner, go for walks. Maybe you can talk to your neighbors from across the street. Try to continue to build that social connection. And to be very honest with you guys, pre-COVID, I was worried about a lot of social connections for our high school kids, because they're on the phone a lot. So whatever, like I mentioned earlier, whatever issues they were having pre-COVID, or now with COVID, it's what's been happening since pre-COVID. So I think continue supporting the children with the soft skills, reading, make eye contact. I had one of my students, a junior, wrote me a whole essay on the subject line, and I called him out on it because, I actually built a relationship with the student already, but I called him out on it. I was like, hey, I'm not tripping on this. However, if you're applying for a job, this wouldn't fly for it. So let's try again. In your next email, please address dear subject matter, and not put everything in the subject line, put it in the body. So I think it's just little connections. Something that our parent, as parents, Educators, continue to build that rapport with your children, continue to help have them try to greet your neighbors, greet people on a day-to-day basis. Next questions, other than teachers who are interacting with students, and how are the other school staff connecting, assisting the students? That's what Mr. R is doing. He's reaching out to students. We all have, at our school at Balboa, we have all the staff members take students, calling home, just doing a wellness check, not just for the students, but for the family, see if there's any resource they need. They food, technology, mental health, anything they can think of. We're trying to connect with the family, and just trying to make sure everybody's okay in this, and try to take care of our community.
Awesome. Alvin, would you like to expand on that second question? Oh, you're on mute, my dear.
Psych. Other than the teachers who are interacting with the students, how are the other school staff connecting? So I can speak on our wellness center right now. A wellness center is, speaking of SSK Foundation, from my understanding, there's a very explicit focus on mental health. And so right now, I think it's the most important to focus on mental health. Like Mike was saying, part of my job is to reaching out and just making phone calls and seeing if families need anything, resources. And we're not even talking about school per se. We're talking about resources because, again, school is only a smaller bubble in the larger picture of what's happening. And so if young people are going through it in their home, we don't expect them to be attending to their school responsibilities because there are more primary pressing things happening. And so right now we have a wellness center that is very much so focused on the mental well-being of the young people who are attending our school as students. So our responsibility is to them. And right now we're trying to build ourselves to be this place and this group of people that are fun and lively and trustable, and you can come to us. Because right now, we haven't built rapport with people who don't necessarily know who we are. And so right now, we're exploring our social media skills. Mike mentioned earlier, he's a little older and not necessarily in line with TikTok. For those of you who are still in this room and you don't know what TikTok is a social media app in which there's 30-second clips of music and dancing and really catchy videos that grab young people's attention like that. And then they scroll through it, and then there's another video and another video and another video. And so that type of media and that really quick engagement, our wellness center, we're trying to do remixes to Moana songs. We're trying to, dress in costume, maybe make a rap video, and ultimately, I'm answering this question by saying, we're not even necessarily interacting with students right now, but we're trying to just interact with this abstract kind of blank space, hoping that young people will be like, oh, they're cool. Let me drop in and see if I can just make some FaceTime. Because right now, the only mandate is young people go to class. So we're trying to let them know that we can be a trusted resource and support them in all of the mental health ways that they need. So we're working on that.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alvin. How does your school interact or connect with the parents and students?
So for us, we send out weekly Roadrunner news for our families, so that way they stay connected in that way. But we'll have our principal's coffee, or if I was doing assembly, I ended up doing an expectations assembly for our students, and so we had a great number of them that actually participated in that. I'm able to send out messages school-wide through our Seesaw as well as Google Classroom, so we have something coming up, then at least the kids know what's going on. We do have classroom parents as well as instructional assistants that are other adults that the students do see, whether it's in small group or one-on-one instruction. We do have our Rainbow, which is our SEL support that we have for our students, and so that's starting up. We have a reading intervention that is starting up as well, and then in addition to that, we do have for students that need a little bit more of that counseling support, we have that for our students through Discovery Center. So there's a lot of different things that resources that we can provide for our families if needed. And so we go through something called MTSS, or multi-tiered, and we do the tier 1, tier 2. What are some of the things that the students need, and try to meet their needs given certain resources that we have here at school.
Awesome. And before we move forward, I just want to read out a question that was hidden from the very beginning. And I'm reading it out because for those who are watching this on rebroadcast afterwards, they don't get to see the chat box. So that's why I want to make sure that they can actually hear the questions as well. And this question is for all three speakers. What are your thoughts on homeschooling? Because, hold on one second. What are your thoughts on homeschooling, especially because they feel like they're paying for the teachers when the teachers aren't I guess, fully doing what they used to do, and their students are doing half classes or half days, and the parents end up being there anyway. So what do you think of just homeschooling? How do you want to go first?
Yeah, so we actually ask our parents to not be near the screen. Because if we were having an actual class, we typically won't have parents there, right? And so, of course, our parents, we want them to be able to help the kids be able to log on and making sure that they're present. But we, are conducting a class, right? We're trying to build rapport with kids. We want to make sure that there's that confidentiality piece with our students as well. And so if there's certain things that do arise, and at least the teacher will be able to connect with the parents and say, hey, Johnny's doing this. Can you please help with that in the future, right? Or talk to him. So we want to make sure that, it's still going to be a space, whether it's going to be a physical space or a virtual space. We want the students to be well aware that this is still school. This is still class. And so we do ask, and we actually sent out district-wide just some protocols in place for families for distance learning, and hopefully our families do follow that. There are certain things that we can and cannot do at the school site, like taking screenshots or recording and all of that. So I know that every district's going to be very different in how they approach remote learning, but we have certain things in place because we want to make sure that things that are going to be set forth, it's appropriate for us, and really trying to connect with our families. I know that a lot of our families do decide to go homeschooling because the remote learning doesn't work for them, right? But we hope that as they think about what they're doing during that homeschooling piece, that they're still meeting the state standards for our students, right? And so that's something that we always want to make sure that families do understand, right? We don't want the kids to not be in school and then still not get the academics that they need or the social and emotional piece. We do have families that do pod systems. So I know that we talked about co-op earlier. So in our area, we call it pods. And so our families are still seeing smaller groups of children to play with each other to build on that social emotional piece and that wellness for them, right? And so there's a lot of different things that are going on, and families are still trying to figure it out, and we're trying to figure it out as well. But we want to make sure that our communication with our families are as clear and as transparent as possible. And we just do a lot of encouragement, as well as really trying to make sure that as we move forward with remote learning, that it's going to work best for our community as well as our families as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, because with my daughter, she's in kindergarten, and she does 40% physical school and 60% virtual school. So on Monday, she would go there from 8 to 12, but her classroom, there's only 6 kids per class per teacher. And we are fortunate to be able to have her in that. But then from Tuesday to Thursday, she does Zoom, and the teachers are very adamant about no parents allowed. They should not be able to see your present or hear you. You can't be micromanaging. And for parents out there with this question, I mean, I think it's great to have that option to homeschool, but like Han was saying, you want to make sure that everything is, that you are qualified for it. I mean, one of my nephew is homeschool. However, my sister was a teacher prior to COVID. So it's not as easy as you think it is to teach your own kids. Alvin, I'll have you emphasize on this.
I think this will be a quick answer for me. I think if a family has the resources to do homeschooling and they have the skill and they have the patience, I encourage people to do homeschooling. And essentially, yeah, I don't think it's as easy as people think it might be. I'm not saying that question, the person who asked that thinks it is, but yeah, I encourage people to do it.
Awesome. Okay, and for the next slides, I'm actually going to have Mike, if you could take over for the wellness resources. And this, I know that when he was talking about earlier, this is for San Francisco, but a lot of these are also nationwide. And Hong, if you have any additional resources that you want to add for your specific county, for those who are parents who are watching from your county later on, maybe that'll be helpful for them as well. So Mike, I'll have you take over and I'll do the slides for you.
Okay. Yeah, I mentioned some of this earlier. But yeah, talking with your children about COVID-19, have them understand what is going on, how can one catch it, and how to stay safe. It's not a China virus, right? I know there's a lot of backlash from upper ups that's saying it's a particular ethnicity and whatnot. So just trying to break down the difference of what it is. I mentioned earlier, stay calm, okay? Kids are gonna react how you react. Try to stay calm as best as you can. Main thing, parents, self-care. Take a deep breath, go for a walk, exercise, keep a routine. Make sure your families have a routine. I know one of the questions earlier is, should we still have school? I just encourage it just because we have routines. If and when we get out of this, we're all gonna need routines anyway, so try to develop them now. Set goals for the week. What are we trying to accomplish as a family? What are we trying to accomplish as an individual? What are we trying to do, right? Like I mentioned earlier, get fresh air. And some of these information I put up here, you can click on it. They have a hyperlink, give you some more examples. Tracy, you can go to the next slide.
Okay. Wait for it, it's coming.
Here, you can click on the hyperlinks. These are just some examples. Some of these are for elementary children, PBS learning, Brain Pop. I think some of that's also included in like RASCAS for the elementary students. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is some San Francisco resources. If you need anything like for students, parents, you know, if you need any help with meals, a lot of our schools provide meals 3 times a day. I think it might be like a 1-day pickup, depending on a district. But I know in San Francisco district, they're providing meals. So please, you know, if you guys are hungry or you know families are hungry, please provide this resource for them. Some of the information on the bottom is actually for maybe even teenage students, just in case if they need support for themselves. Go to the next slide, please.
And just to answer, Lou asked, can you share the slides afterward? Yes, I can. I will share the slides afterward. Also, this video will be rebroadcast, so you'll also see it on our website, on my Facebook, on SSK Facebook, on SSK Instagram, on SSK website, and on YouTube. So it is everywhere. Okay, so next slide.
Oh yeah, this is a little bit more information in San Francisco of other organizations that are providing food, medical resource, mental health. So like if whatever district you are, maybe connecting with the community-based organization in your district, there's a lot of free resources. If you don't know where to go, contact the school, the social worker, wellness centers. Somebody will have this information to provide, and hopefully in language too. Next slide, please. So for San Francisco, like I mentioned earlier, supporting community, contact social worker, CBOs, PG&E. I know they believe they have the CARE Act where they can help reduce electricity bill. Contact your local cable company. I know Xfinity was providing free internet if you did not have internet service. On the middle of the page for other resources for parents, I got this from this is a nationwide site. So you can click on some of these links here if you need support for talking to your children about coronavirus and whatnot. Go to the next slide, please. And lastly, this is a national hotline just for anything. If families need additional support, just for the home, and here's some numbers they can contact if needed. And that's the end of the resource page.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for putting those resources together, by the way. That's awesome. And I know a couple of people on this group is from Southern California. So you want to go to your county, your school district to get those information. The information here is like Mike said, it is for San Francisco. Some of these informations are nationwide, so hopefully those will be of help for you. And Hong, I don't know if you have any additional resources that you wanted to add?
No, I think what is already there is great. There are, free food lunches as well as breakfast that's given out by the district, right? That's something that's been approved. And so that is going to continue through the fall. And so if families do need, some type of lunch or breakfast items, or even maybe meals at night, depending on what it is, then definitely go towards district website. District website should have a lot of information that you need to know, but your child's school and contacting the principal or even just contacting the teacher would be a great start. And from there, they can navigate and actually direct you to specific people, whether it's the psychologists or social workers or counselors, to the right people, depending on your situation, right? Everybody's situation is very unique in its own, and it's important to be able to share, what's going on in your family. So that way the people that are going to be supporting you and your children know what's going on to be able to help you. And so if you start there at the school site, then at least you'll be able to get the resources that can be provided directly to you and your family there.
Great, thank you. So now we're moving toward the end, and I really appreciate, and I want to thank you all for spending this time, because usually we only do an hour and a half, but we have so many good questions, and I really want to make sure we answer everybody's questions. So didn't want to disrespect anybody by missing out some of the questions. So if we could just stay a little bit to answer a little bit more questions, and we only have one slide left and you're done. So, so for you, what questions or concerns do you have or still have that the speakers haven't answered yet, or you want some clarification? Maybe they were speaking their teacher's language and you didn't understand and you wanted some clarification on that. Please let us know. And also type in the chat box, what is something new that you've learned from today's workshop? We put this workshop out for the community, and we want to make sure that it's relevant to you and it's useful to you. So hopefully you got something away from it. So please put it in the chat box now, and Kimmy will share it. While I'm on it, actually, let me just put this question out to Hong, because the question's in the chat box from earlier. During this challenging time, do teachers spend extra hours to prepare for their students and even their families? That's from Marlene Tran.
I would say definitely yes, especially during this time. A lot of our teachers are learning a lot of new modes of learning and teaching. And so they've gone through numerous professional developments, learning new resources, learning how to navigate online, how to actually share their screen and be able to make their instruction as important and as lively as possible for their kids, so that way they're not learning and just staring at a face, right? And so a lot of that, the teachers have to spend a lot of time just trying to navigate that. And I hear teachers all the time, they're like, I spent 12-hour days, or I just came home and I spent another few hours in front of my screen trying to find resources, how to be able to link resources and put up assignments for students, so that way they're ready for the next day. And they spend their nights on the weekend to prepare a schedule for the next week for families, right? And so there's a lot of hours that are being put in right now, just because it is new to everyone. And so I do see our educators working really hard in trying to navigate this new type of remote space. And I, definitely give them lots of kudos for that. Yes, our educators are putting a lot of time into remote.
Awesome. So Cameron, you want to go over some of the comments or questions from the chat box?
Sure. Not a whole lot yet, but it sounds like it's just a resounding thank you from all the guests to all our wonderful speakers this afternoon for going over all of this material with us and having this forums for everyone to be able to speak about and ask questions. I think this is so important once again. So thank you to our wonderful speakers, and then also for our guests for attending. Let's see, there's actually one that just came in from Marlene right now. And it goes, assuming the SFUSD resource list is available in different languages, where are they founded?
Mike or Alva, do you want to take this?
Unfortunately for this one, I took it from Balboa's website. This is the resource that we put together for our school. To get the SFUSD, you will have to go into the main webpage to find their resources. Some of them, like I put like Huckleberry or CYC, their website, you can click on that link to go into their respective website.
Yeah, and I see that Alvin put the website on there. Thank you. And let me just read it out because, again, this is for the audience afterwards since you can't see Alvin's message. It is www.sfusd.edu/learning/resources-learning. Again, I'm going to put this also onto the video, and you'll be able to see that. This video, like I said earlier, you will be able to see it from Facebook, SSK website. You can see it on YouTube. You can see it on Instagram. Unfortunately, we can't put it on TikTok, but I think we pretty much cover all the other medias. Next question.
From Meryl asking, when will this be rerun on SSK?
It will probably be rerun on Monday because this weekend I'm gonna enjoy it with my family, and then I'll have time to edit and post it after I have my own mental health me time. Yes. So moving forward, if you don't have any other questions, we're going to continue. And if you do have questions, you can always, like I said, please send in your questions. You're always welcome to email us. It's strongsmartkind@gmail.com. Again, you type out everything because we want to help you practice spelling. So strongsmartandkind@gmail.com. And the last comment is, as a retired teacher of new immigrant students, I am in awe of the challenges educators face, and of course, parents as well. Yes, I totally agree, Marlene. I think it's a challenging time for everyone involved. I kudos to the teachers, to the, all the staff and the faculties, because you're going into new waters and you're having expectations from the parents, you're having expectations from the kids, and you're having expectations from your own peers. So that's a lot of pressures. And for students as well, it's some of them think this is a vacation. I have one of my nephews. That's a picture of one of my nephews that's watching Zoom, and his video is off while he's laying down on his couch. So, and my sister took the picture and sent it to us. I shouldn't back him out. This is oops. But I just thought it was funny because it's realistic, and that's the reality. And, I hope that things will get better, and I hope that, because education is very important. So I hope as we move forward, we get a vaccine soon, and we don't get the vaccine soon, I hope everybody stays healthy, and, we all need to adapt. That's what human beings are the best at, right? We're the top of the food chain because we're supposed to be the smartest animal. So adaptation is supposed to be, all for it. So thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you to Hong, Dr. Nguyen. Thank you to Alvin. Thank you to Mike for your time, for your experience, for your sharing, your authenticity, and your honesty, for everything. Thank you to our live audience. At first, I was a little worried because we had a lot of people signed up, and then people started responding saying, oh, I forgot, I'm going out a weekend this weekend. It's a holiday weekend. But I'm actually surprised because with the limited people, and I think at one point our highest was 15 people in the group, and with just that amount, we already went over our time with all the questions. So maybe it was a good thing that we didn't have over 20 people. We might have been here all 4 hours. And thank you to the rebroadcast audience, because if you're watching this on rerun, you're still watching us. And I want to thank you as well for taking the time out to educating yourself, because obviously you're watching this because you care, whether it's for yourself, for your family, for your friends. You know, I believe knowledge is power, and what you do with that knowledge is what's important. So as SSK Foundation, we want to provide those knowledge out to you, providing the best speakers, qualified speakers, to bring out the information that's relevant to you, that hopefully you can make a better life and have a better mental health. And finally, thank you to my wonderful co-host, Kimmy. She's also a mother. And, you know, it's a struggle for all of us right now, trying to do multiple hats. So thank you, everyone. And with that, I'm going to say good night, farewell, and happy holiday, happy long weekends. Thank you,
everyone. And thank you to you, Teresa. Bye, everyone.